magic we can't fake.
Hey y'all, Joefer here, the Cranky Old Gay Guy. So today's video was supposed to be yesterday's video, but it was taking a long time with all these cuts and cuts and cuts and cuts and ads and edits and adding photos, and ran out of time. And then I went back and looked at it this morning, and the video portion of me discussing everything was so dark, it wasn't pleasant. And I didn't like the split screen I was trying to do. So I am instead recording the entire thing again today, this morning. And I'm going to try to cut it from the 25 minutes it was. So today I'm going to be talking about a film I saw on Netflix. It's a cheesy Christmas movie that made me kind of cranky. Now, the film is called The Merry Gentleman. And like most cheesy Christmas films, it's the story about a successful woman living in the city who goes back to her small hometown because of family obligations, illness, career change, whatever. Anyway, she goes back to regroup, meets a hunky guy, falls for him, has a brief romance or a flirt with a romance, and then at the end of the movie has to face the decision: does she stay in the small town and pursue this new romance, or does she go back to her high power career in the big city? Because she's always super successful. Well, this movie does not disappoint. The movie doesn't disappoint, as it follows the same trope as every other rom-com Christmas movie. In this case, you have a woman named Ashley, played by actress Britt Robertson, and she goes back to her. She's a Broadway star. She is the headliner of the Christmas revue called The Jingle Bells. Now, how is this a hit? I had no idea. The segments that they showed on the film, it's like a really low-rent Rockettes thing, only they're dressed in little Christmas skirts and hats, and they do the high kicks, and they're wearing nylons and high heels, and it's pretty hokey. So anyway, about, I'd say 2 weeks to a month before Christmas, and by the way, Christmas Eve is their big, super high-end #1 show of the season. She is called into the office by whoever's running the show and told that she's been canned. She's being replaced by a younger model. She's been doing this job for 12 years, and she has aged out of the position. Now, all of these things I just told you are what the actress, Ashley, the headliner, is saying back to the manager. The manager's saying, oh, no, we're just making some changes. I can't say that you've aged out. You know, it's against HR. So Ashley goes home to this small town. I'm guessing it's in New England. At least the flyover scenes look like it's a New England town. There's snow everywhere, and it's older. And I think it's called Cypress Creek or Cypress River, something like that. She gets out of a cab in front of this brick building, and there's a sign in neon that says Rhythm Room above it. And as she's going in, she gets tangled up in this string of garland that this hunky handyman is hanging on a light post. She spins around, falls down on her back, doesn't hit her head, but she falls down. He helps her up. That's their first introduction. Of course, this is the hunky guy she's going to fall for. She goes into the building. It turns out that it is the nightclub, night spot, hot spot of Cypress Creek that she grew up in. Her parents have run this club forever. This is where she learned to perform, dance, sing, etc., so it means a lot to her. Inside, she discovers that the handyman outside works on the inside as well. And, you know, she's this all flirtatious and everything. He's like ignoring her in his subtle, sexy way. And the handyman is played by Chad Michael Murray, who most people would know from the series One Tree Hill back in, I think, in the 90s. It's a show I'd never watched. I've never seen an episode, but I've seen the trailers and I've seen them talk about him being on it. Also in the bar is this really muscular bartender and an older guy, probably in his late 50s, 60s, early 60s, who wears a fedora and drinks warm beer and solves crossword puzzles. Why am I bringing him up? Because he's just a background character, because he'll come into it later on. Father's played by Michael Gross, who was the father on the TV series Family Ties. And her mother is played by, I don't remember the actress's name, but she was one of the aunts on the Netflix series Sabrina, Teenage Witch, or Chilling Sabrina, whatever the new Sabrina thing was. She wasn't Carolyn Ray. She was the older sister. Okay, so jump forward a bit. Ashley finds out that her parents' club is going out of business because they owe 6 months back rent and business isn't what it used to be. Well, what about all the live acts? Aren't they keeping it afloat? And everyone giggles. Live acts, we haven't done those in years. So the landlady comes in, explains to Brooke, the parents aren't there for some reason, so she talks to Brooke. She talks to Ashley instead, and she finds out that they owe money and that as of the Christmas, they're going to be out of business and kicked out. Well, Ashley can't let something as treasured as the rhythm room go under. So she devises a scheme to bring in, just off the cuff, because she's put on the spot of the landlady saying, well, what are you going to do about it? She goes, I'm going to put on a show. It's going to be an all-male review. So a strip show. No, it's an all-male review. And the landlady just kind of laughs. It's like, right. So in the next 6 days, she pulls together the handyman, the bartender, the cab driver that brought her to the place, who, by the way, I knew was going to be in it because he was really muscular, wearing a tight shirt, and he was kind of goofy, happy in the beginning. It's like, okay, he's going to come back. So now they have 3 people. And then she picked her brother-in-law. Her sister, by the way, owns the local cafe. And she and her husband run it. And her husband, she gets her sister's husband to come and do it. So now they have 4 guys that are going to dance. And in 6 days, she teaches them a strip routine, just like Chippendales. And they have a sellout performance their first night. They made $2,100, which her dad says, oh my God, we haven't made this much in one day in forever. So they're on their way to saving the club. And every night from there to Christmas, they have a strip show. And every night it is sold out. Why? Because the local paper did a write-up and said, it is the new hot spot in Cypress Creek. So everybody wants to go. Well, women want to go. It's exclusively women. And all of them are paying $30 a head to get into this club, to see this strip show of the same 4 guys dancing the same numbers every night, but with different costumes. They're all the same thing. It's just, they're wearing vests, they're wearing cowboys, they're wearing bows or tuxes, whatever. It's pretty much the same each and every time. And they never do anything more than take off their shirt and dance. They aren't even going out in the audience and, getting money shoved down their pants or anything like that. So it's a pretty lame, hokey setup that I can't imagine would ever be financially successful after the first performance, because it's the same thing over and over again. And this is a small town, mind you. Where are all these women coming from that are in the audience? And how can they afford $30 a head every night to go to this strip show? Now, looking around the audience, it's white women, middle-aged white women, a few late 20s women, and I think I counted 2 or 3 women of color. Now, on stage, they're white, except the brother-in-law, who is a black man. They're all attractive. They all have nice bodies. Chad Michael Murray is ripped to the point he has 0 body fat now. He has his shirt off several times, even when he's getting his costume measured, so they can show his abs and the veins sticking out of the sides of his abs. He's obviously gone on a cutting diet before this film. The bartender is obviously a weightlifter, probably someone who appears in weightlifting shows or physique shows. He's got everything down. The cab driver also goes to a gym a lot. I wouldn't say he's a bodybuilder, but he's really kind of hunky too. And then the brother-in-law supposedly is the former high school football star. He's got a nice body, but he's not ripped and cut like the other guys. It's like he was at one time and he's let himself age normally. He's probably in his 50s. And this is an actor that I met here in Portland years and years ago in, oh boy, the mid 90s. He was acting in theater here in Portland before he went to LA. And I met him because he either knew my housemate. Well, I met him in my living room because my housemate brought him home. Let's put it that way. And we will leave it at that. He has changed his name a little bit. He's shortened it for his professional name. And I'm not going to tell you who he is. If you want to know who it is, just look up the cast. He still looks good. And yeah, I find everyone that was on stage very attractive. Anyway, come Christmas Eve, the day before Christmas Eve, Brooke gets a call. Brooke, why do I keep saying that? Ashley gets a call from the person that's running the Broadway show that she was in. By the way, it's called The Jingle Bells, and asks her to come back and be the headliner again. And she's saying, but you fired me for being too old. And she said, well, the girl that we replaced you with couldn't hack it. This isn't for everybody. Well, what about the understudy? Oh, the understudy's sick. We need you back. We need you back tomorrow. And she goes, but tomorrow's Christmas Eve. And that's when the Rhythm Room is having their big thing. And she goes, well, I talked to the higher ups and we're going to give you a 3-year contract and a 25% wage increase. Well, she can't say no to this because, as she puts it when she explains to the dancers why she's leaving, this is a dream that I've worked at my whole life. I can't just give it up. And the dancers' response are, well, what about us? Our dreams of saving your parents' club, you're just going to give up on us? And she goes, oh, I can't help it. I've got to go. And Chad Michael Murray, of course, is pissed off because he's now falling in love with her. And evidently he had a marriage before that fell apart because they moved to this small town to start over. And his wife said, this is boring. And she took off. So he pouts and goes out on the sidewalk, and Ashley follows him, and he explains to her that he was falling for her, but he's very happy that she's showed him what kind of a biddy that she really is, and that he didn't let himself fall too far because it would hurt too much. And then he explains to her, I got a show to do. I need to save your parents' club. And he goes back inside. She pouts a little bit too, and then she goes and gets in her cab, and she drives away to the airport to fly back to New York City. Well, they're on stage. And prior to this, a few days before, the brother-in-law had slipped on the ice. I've got to explain this. And hurt his leg so he couldn't dance. And the cabbie's going, well, how can we do this 4-person number with only 3 people? And Chad Michael Murray is like, the show must go on. We will do it. And they get out there and make all of these dance mistakes. They're standing in a triangle pattern, one on each side, one in the rear stage, one in the front stage. And the person in the front stage is the one who sprained his ankle, so he's not there. So now there's just 3 of them up there. And they're doing the same footwork, very simple footwork. But they keep running into each other, and we can't do this without a 4th person. So Chad goes, stop the music. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. They go backstage. The other guys are trying to convince him to cancel the show, and we'll regroup and start tomorrow. And he's saying, no, we have to save this club. And at that moment, the guy that sits at the bar, who drinks beer and does crossword puzzles, comes back and said, I am going to save this show. I will be your 4th person. And they say, well, you can't dance. How do you even know the choreography? And as he puts it, he says, I don't just sit at the bar doing crossword puzzles and drinking warm beer. I pay attention. I know your steps. Because he's been there for all the rehearsals, because for some reason, he lives at the bar. That's not explained. So this guy is an older, semi-attractive guy. He takes off his shirt. At one time, it looks like he had a body. And it's just kind of all sagged a little bit. Nothing horrible, but no comparison to the guys that are dancing, the other 3. I looked him up. It turns out that's Maxwell Caulfield from Grease 2, married to Juliette Mills, who used to be the nanny on Nanny and the Professor. And then I think he was on Falcon Crest or something, one of the nighttime dramas, back in the day when he was really ripped and hot and hunky. And now he's just kind of 58, 59, 60-year-old man, and he's kind of just let himself go a bit, and he's thinning hair. And anyway, he's not a dancer. He knows the moves, but he's not a great dancer. And as far as critiquing the dancing, the bartender can dance. He knows how to move. The cabbie knows how to move. Chad Michael Murray does the moves, but he's very stiff. He is obviously not a dancer in real life. Maxwell Caulfield, who I've seen dance and was really good, just doesn't seem to have it in this show. And I don't know if that was his character or if he's just not a good dancer anymore. Anyway, they get up on stage. They start to dance. This is Christmas Eve. Chad Michael Murray gets all teary-eyed and reticent and says, "Stop the music." And he can't go on because he's so upset that Ashley left. At that moment in time, Ashley, who's in her cab, is sitting in her cab, and there is a traffic jam. And given this is a small town, Cypress Creek, it's not like they have an international airport, but the street is lined with cars and they're all honking. And the cabbie goes, "Well, I hope that you're not going to miss your plane because it's Christmas and there's always a traffic jam at Christmas." Oh, you see her roll her eyes and contemplate. And the next scene, she's walking back into the rhythm room. Chad Michael is still staying on stage, not doing anything. They're all just stopped, and the women in the audience are all just going, "What's going on?" He sees Ashley. She waves. He smiles. He goes, "Start the music." And they dance, and they give this killer number, and the audience is just, oh, it's wonderful. And then the music stops, and the men leave the stage. The lights come up. Chad Michael Murray comes out and starts talking to Ashley, and she explains that, she called the manager and said she couldn't go. "I'm going to stay here. I want us to blah, 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 blah." Oh, it's their first number. Women have paid $30 a head. No one is upset that they seem to have stopped on stage or that they did their number and then stopped again and took a break. None of the women are throwing themselves at the men like they were earlier. Waving money and saying, "Oh," it's as if all the women just kind of go off in the background and chatter while these two have this romantic conversation. Cut to the next scene. It's Christmas, and they're setting up a food service in the rhythm room. The big sign outside says, "Closed today for private service, private gathering." In the rhythm room, they have one or two items on the table. Brooke brings in something. The father brings in something. And then they show the table again, and it's full. I don't know how that happened. It just happened. And then all the other people come in, and they sit around the table, and they just sit down to eat. And the landlady walks in. Ashley gets up, runs over to her, and says, "I got something for you." She hands her an envelope of money and says, "It's all there." And the landlady is so touched. It's, "Oh, I can't believe you did this in such a short amount of time. You're incredible. I know that the rhythm room is going to be around for many more Christmases to come because of you. Would you like to join us for Thanksgiving?" "Could I? I would be honored." And she sits down and joins them for Thanksgiving. Well, that's pretty much where the show ends. And I mean, I've been cranky throughout the show because it's so unrealistic. Every scene has something Christmas in it. And, a garland, a tree, lights, etc. At one point, Ashley runs out into the countryside to a barn where the hunky handyman has his shop, and he's in there drilling something. And you walk in, and it's a barn with the slat sides, with air blowing through them, big gaps in the boards. And he's got his tools set up kind of like in a horse shape, a U shape. And on one side, he's got a table covered in a tarp. We'll get to that. She comes in and is admiring the place because for some reason, it's all decked out with garland and Christmas lights. Now, I ask you, how many of you have a shop at home, wood shop, metal shop, a garage that you work in to do crafts or to do your work? How many of you decorate your workshop with garland and Christmas lights? You don't. You're the only one that's going to see it. You're the only one in there. I don't know anyone that's ever going to take the time to do that, even if they're really into Christmas. Okay? That's one thing. At one point, she lifts up the tarp and uncovers that he's working on a table, and he's carved pine trees along the edge of it. And it's like, she goes, "Oh my God, you're talented. You're so skilled. I had no idea." Well, it's been done with a router, so it's not like he's hand carving this stuff. And it was pretty ridiculous. I do have a shop, and I do work with wood, and I do know that I would never decorate my shop for any occasion. That's just me. Okay, this, by the way, is the table that they're using for their Christmas dinner. Here's another issue. At one point, Chad Michael Murray, his character, and this, whatever her name is, Ashley, are walking down the street at night after rehearsal, and there's snow everywhere, except on the sidewalks. The streets are wet. The sidewalks just have a little bit of dampness here and there. And they see a Santa Claus and the whole setup with the throne and all this stuff out on the sidewalk, and they take pictures with him. And it is night and Santa's closing up, but they say, do you have, time for one more? And of course he does, because he's Santa Claus. Who would set up a Santa station outdoors in an environment where it snows or rains or windy, cold? And by the way, there's no wind anytime in this whole show. Even when you see snow, there's no wind. So it's all on a soundstage somewhere. But it's ridiculous to think that someone's going to put a big fabric chair on a sidewalk with a carpet and have a man dressed as Santa Claus sitting there and a guy dressed as an elf taking pictures. It just doesn't make any sense. Yet that's the way it is. And every street corner is decorated and there's lights and all this kind of stuff. The town is primarily white. I think I counted 3 or 4 people of color in the entire movie. Given it is supposedly upstate New York, I'm guessing, a New England town, it doesn't mean that it couldn't be a little bit more balanced. They do have the brother-in-law. He's like the only person of color who has any lines in this show. And I would think that Netflix would be a little bit more balanced than that. Anyway, things that made me cranky. It's unrealistic, for one. The fact that she is offered this 3-year contract, Ashley, to go back to the Jingle Bells in New York City, which is a Broadway show, and a 3-year contract and a 25% wage increase for a show that is seasonal. It's not like Jingle Bells can pull in people year round, right? I mean, would they? That's kind of crazy. It doesn't make any sense at all. And for a Broadway theater, when they show the marquee in the beginning, when they show the Jingle Bells, it doesn't look like much of a theater to me. It looks like an old movie theater, like in a small rundown town somewhere, that they just put up letters that said the Jingle Bells, and they show people walking in, a crowd of people like, oh my God, this is popular. I've been to New York and I've seen some of the theaters, and some of them are like hole in the walls, but they're big theaters inside. This just didn't look like any of that. That was one. The fact that Chad Michael Murray fell in love with her so quickly. That's another thing. Her parents were very aloof, like they've been running this club for years, yet they didn't seem to be very involved in anything or know much about anything. The fact that the bartender rehearsed all day, who was tending bar. The cab driver rehearsed all day, who's driving the cab. The brother-in-law, who's supposedly running this restaurant with his wife, he's in rehearsal all day. Well, who's taking his place at the cafe? I don't know. I just don't know. And Chad Michael Murray still finds time to have his own business, handyman business, as well as do all the upkeep on the bar, which the club just seems to be falling apart. As the landlady put it, this is a hole in the wall that's walls are full of holes. That's probably the most memorable line in the entire movie. Okay, so those things make me cranky. The fact that they make something really cheesy and unrealistic and unbalanced. And of course, everyone is attractive. That's another thing. There's no real world people in this film, even the background. Everyone's attractive. And in the real world, everyone's not visually attractive. And it would be nice, even in a small town, to see people who are people. So that made me cranky. Why did I watch this movie? Because I have listened to a couple podcasts, and both of them, for some reason, talk about this movie or review this movie. One of them actually was an long interview with the guy that plays the brother-in-law. And I haven't seen him since, well, Portland. And I saw him, I think, a 10-second scene or something. He was on General Hospital. And I wanted to know what he looked like now. So I tuned in to see that. Yeah, that's what I did. And that's how I spent my Saturday night. I was supposed to go to a lumber twink, which is kind of like a barracuda, which is kind of like a big bear dance. But lumber twink is more otters mixed with bears, and everyone wears flannel. And then I got online and no, it's a pajama party, but it's a plaid Japan. I don't know. And they wanted me to buy tickets online. And then there was a service fee. And it's 10 blocks from my house, the venue. And I've gone in the past and I just did it at the door. It didn't say anywhere that I could purchase tickets at the door. And then I got to thinking, and it's like, well, it doesn't start till 9, and it's already 9. And I'm watching this dumb movie, and I'm laying on the couch, and it's raining really heavy outside, and it's cold. And do I really want to dress in plaid and go stand in line and try to get a ticket for this? Tickets were like $15. I think they were $15. They're $20 if you don't wear plaid. And then there's that service fee of $4.98 or something on top of that. Why they have a service fee, I have no idea. That's another crank I have. There's a theater a block from my house that does live music and things. And you can go online and buy tickets for events. Or you can go to the ticket window on the day of the event once they open and buy a ticket. Well, even when you buy a ticket at the ticket window, they charge you a service fee. Now, why is that? Where's the service? I understand if you're going online because you're going through a third party, so the third party is charging a fee, and that's where that fee comes from. But when you are just handing someone money and they're giving you a ticket to the show that you're going into, why is there a service fee? I think they're just pocketing the money, and they're calling it a service fee, and it's just another way to grab money from people. And foolishly, people are willing to spend it. I would love to see service fees go away unless you are using a third-person vendor. And if so, why does a third-person vendor get to charge $5 to $9? Some of them are $9.95 for an online ticket. It's a software application. It's not costing them anything other than the rental or use of the software. And there's no way it's costing them $10 per purchase to sell a ticket. Maybe they're paying $2 a ticket. That's what they're paying for this application. So why are they charging so much? I don't know. It makes me cranky. This movie made me cranky. It'll be forgotten soon enough because there'll be some other cheesy movie that comes on that I'll watch. And that's all I got for you today. Boy, this was actually longer than the one yesterday. I apologize. Sometimes I just babble on and on and on. Thanks for sticking with me. Please like, share. I guess if you share this, it's better in the algorithm than even subscribing. That's what I read today. But go ahead, like, share, give me your comments below. Good, bad. If I talk too much, tell me I talk too much. If you don't like what I'm wearing, tell me you don't like what I'm wearing. If you hated the movie or you loved the movie, tell me. Comment, please. And I will let you all go now. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Thanksgiving's coming up in 3 days. So I don't know what you're doing on that, but if you celebrate, happy Thanksgiving. I'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.
Snowflakes dancing in the air, lights are twinkling everywhere. Two hearts meeting by mistake, Christmas magic we can't fake. Hot chocolate by the fireside, warm feelings we cannot hide. Silent night, but hearts are loud underneath the mistletoe shroud. Christmas time, our hearts align. You and me, our love will shine. In this cozy winter's glow, together now we'll let it snow. Gingerbread and candy canes, Jingle bells and midnight trains, holding hands through frosty streets, finding love in snowy feet. Stars above make wishes true. In your eyes the world feels new.